very helpful. He answers all my 6-year-old questions on a continuous basis. And as I mentioned the last time, we are working on a series of basic how-to hoof care videos for horse owners. So we got started a couple of weeks ago. Spent a really good Saturday looking at things, talking about things, thinking about what it is we could do. And we'll be working on those into the not too distant future. So with that, Mitch, thank you very much for coming, and they're all yours.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Coleman. It's always nice to come out and hang out with you, Bob. You know, when Dr. Coleman came to UK, he's from Canada, Western Canada, and I'm from Colorado, the western slope of Colorado. So my little hometown of Gunnison is about 5,000 people, and it's about 7,200 foot elevation. So we live in high mountain desert. I guess most of our use for horses are ranch work, pack animals, and there's a few pleasure horses around. And the horses' feet are much drier in that part of the country. So we have a lot less problems than we have in this part of the world when we've got a lot of moisture. I don't think that horses' feet are evolved and developed in moist ground. They've developed in hard ground and dry conditions, and so horses' feet tend to do better there. But people live everywhere, so we love our horses. So it's important that we take care of them because in the wild, the horses that they don't need our help. They don't need our help to get to feed, and they don't need our help to trim their feet. They're kind of in equilibrium. And so they wear as much foot as they grow. And and we don't, sometimes they're not really used as hard as some of our sport horses are. So over time, we've learned that we do have to maintain our feet, some depending on where the horses live in the environment. But most of the time, we need to have a look at them about every 45 days, get them trimmed up. And I don't know why. I guess if I had a chalkboard here, I could do it. You want me to run that?
No, I was gonna start sharing my screen.
I don't know. I don't know if they're looking at me or the screen.
They're looking at you right now.
Oh,
I
okay.
forgot to share my screen.
Okay, so you're gonna share our screen.
I'm gonna share your PowerPoint, and then you should show up in the corner of most people's screen on Zoom. And then you can just hit the sidebar.
Do we have a remote?
No, I got enough plugs.
Okay. Can I sit right here then?
Yeah,
and do it?
however you
I'll
wanna
just
do
sit
it.
right
Yeah,
here.
that'd be-
Well,
let me turn it. Okay, that'd be great. Let me put this camera just on you, and
Yeah.
it'd be
How about
comfortable
that?
too. So that's fine.
Anyway, you guys. So Dr. Bob and I get along really good. He's from the West. I'm from the West. We're a little bit different breed out there than y'all out here in the East, and so that's fine. I came here in 1985. Wanted to get into the racehorse industry. So, and I jumped right in, bellied right up to the racehorse industry, and was able to, get involved in that and learn that industry, and was lucky to work on some really good horses over the years. And then started having a family, and one thing led to another, and decided to kind of amalgamate my formal academic education. And this is why I came to Kentucky to go to graduate school at UK. And so I could meld all of that knowledge in equine physiology and biology with my knowledge of shoeing. And so it made a logical segue into the shoeing school. So my back had a couple surgeries on it, and I had 3 kids on the ground. I decided started to have some children on the ground. So I needed to be able to work in the industry and be consistent at it. So I decided to start a farrier school, and we've had it, we started in 1989, and we've had it for 31 years, I guess, ever since then. It's really important what we do. teaching people to shoe horses, because horses are, I saw two of them today that were sore, so sore that they could hardly stand on one leg. One of them, when I opened the abscess, it drained literally a shot glass full of gray exudate. I've been shooting Moose for a long time. And the problem was that Moose's owner didn't take care of him and let his feet grow. And he has those type of feet that have very little concavity in the foot. He grows no heel and the foot grows straight out like that. And as a result, the horse had an abscess, a subsolar abscess under his sole from quarter around to quarter. And when we opened it up, he was noticeably better, but he's going to be sore for a few days. And then we're going to have to do some special shoeing to get him going. The other person had a problem with a crack, and the crack got infected real bad. And it was because the foot was not taken care of, and it cracked in the quarter and it got infected. And when it does, it pinches the lamina underneath and it hurts to walk. And so the point is that since we've domesticated these animals, we've got to take care of them. We've got to keep them safe. We've got to keep them vaccinated. We need to watch out for things that happen in domestication that doesn't happen in the wild, like colic, for example. We have huge problems with colic. You know, colic is the #1 killer of horses in the world. Laminitis is the #2 killer of horses. Does anybody here know what laminitis is? When I say laminitis, give me a show of hands if people know what laminitis is. Okay. Explain to me, ma'am, what do you think what's laminitis?
Well, a lot of people think it's founder, but it's not. It's where the lamina in the hoof, they start coming away from the hoof wall, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that lets that bone, the tan bone, rotate and come out the bottom if it gets bad.
It sure can. You bet. Yeah, that's what happens. You know, the horse is a kind of a specially designed animal. All the other large quadrupeds have 2 toes, right? And one of my old mentors, I miss him a lot, Dr. Bill Sylvia taught me about artiodactyls and perissodactyls. That just means in taxonomy, they branched off from each other. They're not very related. Horses are the odd-toed animals. They walk on the single toe. And therefore, unlike a cow, unlike a person, unlike a dog, where we have multiple digits on the ground, you know, you can stand on one leg and curl your toes and control yourself, because we have muscles going all the way down into our feet in multiple digits. A horse has one column of bone on one cylindrical hoof capsule, and there's no muscles below the knee or the hock. So he doesn't have any muscular control per se for the bottom of his foot. There are muscles that are attached to the tendons, but these are very long tendons. And so they have to balance on that hoof capsule. And it's when horses are left to their own devices, you know, in nature, all the bad conformed horses and bad genetic horses all get left by the wayside, and the strong survive. And we don't see a lot of really bad conformation in wild horses, in the wild horse population. I say this because where I'm from, in the Bureau of Land Management land, the BLM land, and the National Park Service, and all the millions of acres in the West that we have, got wild horses turned out. So everybody's got a wild horse. Everybody's adopted a wild horse. So they're in pack animals, they're in gymkhana shows, they're every place. And so they generally have really good feet. When they have these perfect, ideal feet, and we bring them in, domesticate them, all of a sudden stop them moving as much as they do every day, going to water, whatever they got to do, and capture them. And then especially bring them here into Kentucky. In 1 year, their feet are completely different. Lost their concavity, flared out, you know, and that's what happens to our horn when we sit in a bathtub or a hot tub, our fingernails get soft. And that's what happens. So things like laminitis or founder, whatever. Foundering is the old term, and it's a nautical term. When a boat sinks, it founders. And so laminitis actually is the inflammation of the lamina, which doesn't necessarily cause the bone to let loose. When the horse lets loose, and we know why, but not all of them are laminitis become foundered, and foundering means that the bone is actually dropped and displaced. And once that happens, it's an emergency situation. It's very painful. Imagine just pulling your fingernail up. right? So it's painful to have to stand on it. It gets very infected, and it occurs in a lot of different, or a variety of degrees, I guess, right? So we, as horsemen, you all know how to see if your horse is colicking, right? Do you know if your horse is colicking, ma'am? Yeah, you listen to her guts, right? If you're a good horseman, you might have a stethoscope or something, around. But if there's no movement in the guts and your horse is uncomfortable and it's kicking his belly, that's an emergency situation, isn't it? So these are these horses work hard for us. And so I feel that we need to work hard for them. And that's why I chose to be a farrier when I was 17 years old. So I've been one for a long time, seen lots of horses, and I feel like I am where I'm supposed to be, and that's teaching young people how to better manage feet. There's a huge problem in our country, and it's that there's no required minimum standard, and anybody can shoe horses. But although we have to have a license to cut hair and be a plumber, an electrician, or whatever, and no one is requiring anybody that is knifing and putting nails in within millimeters of the sensitive supply of the foot that the horse has to stand on is requiring any kind of knowledge base whatsoever. So I've taken it, and so as a result, we see the result of that. You guys have probably seen the result of that, of unskilled and untrained people trying to put shoes on horses. And when you have healthy feet and there's thick hoof walls, and it's not really that hard to get steel on the bottom of a horse's feet. When you've got a show horse, you've got an animal that's highly bred, has issues, conformation problems, metabolic issues, whatever. We need to pay a little bit more attention to them if we're going to work them hard. So the harder we work them, in my opinion, the more we have to pay attention to the feet. I'm a big believer in that if we leave horses alone, they can take care of themselves just fine. But we don't. We have them stalled. We've got to control a lot of elements of their life. And one of them is the feet. So I've got a picture up there. You guys can see that's a draft horse. That's a big draft horse, hind foot. And that's what we call a fullard, 3/4 fullard shoe. So it's a flat shoe. And the reason that we do that is because the rate of wear of the foot exceeds the rate of growth. So it wears more than it grows. But we have to shoe the horse for protection. Uh-oh. There we go. So I just want to kind of go over a few things. There's a difference between a farrier and a horseshoer, in my opinion, and we'll state it here. There are people that shoe horses that can put shoes on horses, but a farrier is a professional that understands a lot about what he's doing. It has to be a decent horseman. It has to have a knowledge of anatomy of the lower leg and the physiology of the lower leg and the difference of the hoof growth of a baby versus a yearling versus an old mare turned out. We have to understand the mechanics involved so that we can trim the foot accordingly. We've got to know, if we're going to work in Lexington, for example, work on babies. If you're going to work on a potentially $1 million, yearling when he's a foal, we got to get him straight. So if he's a little crooked, there's a lot that we can do by ourselves, or sometimes in hand with the veterinarian, or sometimes in hand with the owner. So for example, if you've got a horse that's got a club foot, does anybody know what a club foot is? Club foot, anybody know? So a club foot is a horse that's got one very high foot, right? And it's clubby, looks like a club. And it's a contracted deep flexor tendon muscle. And so there's a lot that owners can do with that. If it's a foal, I can teach you how to stretch the muscle belly and elongate the muscle belly so you don't have to have surgery. And so it's a team effort. The horses is the one that's working hard. The horse is the one that needs our help. So we need to make sure he gets fed correctly. The veterinarian gets out to see him once in a while. He's in good, safe, surroundings. He doesn't have to worry about getting jumped on by a bobcat at night. He can come into the barn, and you don't have to worry about, I had a horse one time, Major. We didn't get him in before the snow hit, and this is in Montana, and I found him a week later. frozen, standing solid, frozen solid, big furry popsicle, couldn't make it back to the barn. It was heartbreaking because he was trying to get back to the barn, but the storm came, and in the plains in the western part of the United States, when those snowstorms comes, you better be hunkered down. So they work hard for us. Professional farriers need to have a lot more than just the ability to trim excess horn off and tack a shoe on. We have to shape a shoe, by the way. If I show you this picture of this foot right there, the shape of that shoe is a real close to the shape of the bone in his foot, the coffin bone in his foot. And that's the idea. We want to have the same amount of protection around the coffin bone all the way around. And this is one way that we look at balancing feet. Again, horses are completely different than humans in that humans bear weight on their bones, with the only thing protecting them as the skin and the fat pads. Horses' entire skeleton is suspended off the ground. So the coffin bone, which is only about 3.5, 4 ounces, and it's a very porous bone. It should never come in contact with the ground. That's why laminitis is so bad chronically. So it's not only just the acute tearing of the lamina, which holds the bone to the inside of the hoof wall, right? Do you guys have a laser pointer maybe? Did you bring a laser pointer on? I don't know if I can I use a pointer here?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Where is it?
I see it there.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, looky here. I can see the right then. Shazam, Ange. You guys are, all right, so right there,
Let's
that's
see if
a
we can
coffin
make it a
bone.
bigger one.
There you go. See, that's why Bob gets the big bucks.
Except you can't see it on the little tiny screen. Just go with that one because I can't make it bigger.
It's funny, I was in my shop and I'm shoeing this horse, doing a demonstration. I'm doing a clinching demonstration. And I got all done, and I heard one of the students say, for being blind as shit, that was a pretty good clinch. And I said, my hearing's good too. I heard that. So anyway, horses suspend their whole body within the capsule, right? And they should be about 3/8, half an inch off the ground, right? That's that concave sole does. Now, and so it's a completely different weight bearing situation. When the horse loads his foot, the fetlock drops down, stores what we call elastic energy, like when we store energy in a bow and arrow, right? And then that fetlock springs back up. So this is our fetlock joint here. And I'm missing a couple sesamoid bones. Sorry about my drawing there. Anyway, this is our finger. That's our knuckle. This is our first knuckle, right? And this is our first, second, third bone. That one, and that one. And that hoof wall is our fingernail. Okay. So it's just a little bit different way of bearing weight. To tell you about how I view feet. One of the ways I'll look at horses is just to see how their conformation. If I want to be able to relate the shape of the foot and health of the foot with the conformation. So if, for example, I have a horse that's pigeon-toed, I know when I pick the feet up, if he's at the end of his cycle, he's going to flare to the inside. He's going to grow more to the inside. He's going to load his outside more. And therefore, he's going to jam up the blood supply on the outside, and he's going to wear it more. So the outside's not going to grow. The inside's going to grow out of control. So that's why the flares come on the inside of a pigeon-toed horse. So I see that. I'll be looking for that. And then I'll have a game plan of how to help make that horse as comfortable as we can during the shoeing cycle. So when I look at animals, I just evaluate. I snap lines, conformation lines from 3 dimensions and look and stand all the way around, looking from the whole appendicular skeleton or the legs down, and pay particular attention to the foot. Oh, buddy of mine from Canada once told me this thing, and I had to quote him, that the hoof capsule is constantly growing. The hoof is elastic and dynamic, and it changes shape according to the weight it must bear. So if you've ever had an animal that had gone chronically sore, he'll probably change the way he bears weight on it. And as a result, he'll change the shape of that foot. So horse getting navicular, for example,
might have a nice round thoroughbred foot. At one point in his life, he gets high level navicular where he's standing, pointing his foot, having his foot out front, and he's not loading it correctly. He'll grow narrow, a little boxy, narrow foot, okay? Because it's not being loaded and functioning. So feet do change shape according to the weight they bear. This is just a picture. I just want to show you the degree of anatomy that we have to learn. There's all of this, all of these structures in here that we need to know about. So the bone, the laminar bed, and this is just a view of the laminar bed. The horse's lamina are unique, by the way. And there you are. There's my thing. Those are the laminar leaves. Now those are the laminar leaves that make the horse's lamina unique. So every animal that's a hoofed animal, that's an ungulate, whether it be a pig, a sheep, a cow, a goat, a yak, whatever large ungulate, cloven hoofed animal has the same situation. They have two little bones instead of one, and their bones attached to the hoof wall with lamina, just like our fingernails attached to our distal phalanx. The difference is on each of these laminar leaves, there's dozens of microscopic secondary laminar leaves that basically make the surface area. Let's say I'm going to glue my hands together, right? So I'll glue them together like that. I've got a certain amount of surface area, but if I go like that and finger join them, I've got way more surface area to glue, right? So if there are any carpenters here, you guys know that concept. It's actually a stronger joint much times than it is the regular wood, okay? Because you have a huge amount of surface area. That's how the bone is attached to the wall. So the lamina that a cow would have, the horse has 10 times the amount of surface area for attachment. That's how come it's so important to keep the bone off the ground, okay? So the horse has got a well-designed suspension system. Let's talk about healthy feet. Okay, well, let's talk about what are the functions of the foot. What does the foot have to do? Well, it has to bear weight comfortably. It should help the horse with traction, meaning deceleration traction, where it can kind of control slide and then grip the ground, and acceleration traction as he pushes off. The foot serves as a venous blood pumping mechanism because there's a lot of blood in that foot and there's no muscles up to the knee. So there's no active help to get the blood up. So there's a mechanism in the foot and called the venous blood pumping mechanism that helps to actively pump that venous blood out of the leg. It is not the frog, by the way. The frog is helpful in it. The frog is part of the symphony of structures and movements that have to happen for a horse to do that. Now, if you have a very narrow atrophied frog, the blood will still pump, it's just not as efficient. So when we look at feet, we'd like to see the hoof wall, which we're looking at here. This is the hoof wall on the left. We can see that we've got the striations from top to bottom are the horn tubules. We'd like to see the hoof capsule directly underneath the bone column. That's the ideal positioning. From a side view, there's a certain length of foot that's appropriate for every horse. And we'd like to have the angle of the foot, and we see the dorsal angle, the hoof wall angle. There we are. There's my hoof wall angle. That should be the same angle as the pastern, okay? So it's called the hoof pastern axis. That should be straight. If you got anybody got any thoroughbred horses here? No, if you did, you'd know that we don't often get that. We don't often get that because the thoroughbred horse has got a little bit longer pasture. So there's more leverage on it. So we generally don't have it as nice as some other horses, not like our Rocky Mountain horses that got nice short pastures and nice big, thick, rock crushing feet, as we say. So what kind of horses do we have here?
We got Rocky Mountains.
You got Rocky Mountains and
Tennessee.
Tennessee walking horses? What do you got, sir? Standard breds. Did you ride them up here? Did you ride your horse up here?
No.
Okay. Well, I was just up in Amish country, and there's a whole bunch of standard breds tied up around Amish country. You got standard breds and quarter horses, you say? Walking horses. What do you got in the back? And standard breds. How come y'all got standard bred? How come you get standard breds?
Yeah, they.
You like to breed them with your walking horses?
Makes a good crop.
Is it? All right. Yeah, we used to breed our mules with our Arabian horses in the mountains and make good cross. So anyway, I got to tell you guys, I'm coming from Colorado. I've never been around the goofy walking horses. I got to tell you, man, they're great. I love them. Tough, kind, for the most part, and great feet. You know, I like them. They can put up with a lot. I like the walking horses. All right, they're a little bit taller to shoot than a little quarter horse, and man, my age doesn't like getting down that far. I like a little bit of leg under a horse, so we'd like to have a hoof pastern axis that's straight. When the foot grows and he gets out of balance because he's got a shoe on, so he's not able to wear the foot, it's up to us to bring that whole bearing surface back up underneath the foot again. That's in a nutshell what we do. We like to view feet. Now the view on the left is we're sighting the foot for what we call medial-lateral balance. We want that to be perpendicular to the column of bone, and because we want the joint surfaces to load parallel to each other. So the joint surfaces of the coffin, pastern, fetlock joints, they need to load congruently, which is parallel. Then we don't want one side more than the other. If anybody's ever had a knee or a hip replacement or something, you know what bone on bone feels like when you've lost your articular cartilage. And that's what happens when joints are unevenly and disproportionately loaded. So it's important that we have to balance feet in the medial lateral plane. We have to balance them in the toe to heel plane as well. Standard bred horse got a little bit different foot than the walking horse, got a little bit different type foot than the quarter horse. So we don't do them all exactly the same, but there are very similar things. So we'll basically trim feet to what we call the live sole junction. That's where all the old dead sole that's exfoliating away is gone, and we're left with the sole that's well connected, that's hydrated, that's supposed to be on the foot. And that's kind of the depth. If we measure the front of the wall, usually you'll be of a normal size horse, unless you got a warm blood. You'll have anywhere between 3 1/4 to 3 3/4 inch toe length. Okay. You guys put a lot of drill tech on your horses here.
Yep.
You got to be careful of it. I know we don't need our horses going down. I mean, I know that's even worse to have horses go down, but the drill tech, it does affect their normal slide, and it does, the leg has to deal with that velocity anyway. So when you jam them with a lot of drill tech and a lot of boring, sometimes you'll get some issues, some arthritis down the bottom of the leg. So when you put the drill tech on, just make sure it's put on as even as you can. You don't need height in drill tech, you need surface area. Does that make sense? So if you can, spread it around if you can, or if you use tungsten pins, those pins are a lot more even. You can kind of keep things even. So, yeah, we're still looking at the foot. The frog is a really important part of the foot. Helps to keep the heels open. There's a big pad underneath there. There's a hind foot, kind of a normal hind foot. And we can see on the right, just a freshly trimmed normal foot. And we've got a pretty good hoof pastern axis. And then what I've done is drawn a line down there so you can see the axis of the cannon bone. So if we draw a line down the axis of the front axis of the cannon bone, right there, that line should hopefully bisect the point of the heel. And if we look at this foot next door, the point of the heel, yeah, the point of the heel is way too far forward. So what do you do?
I was gonna try and accept them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just see if the immediate effect, if you don't mind.
Got it?
Nope. It's not showing up on the screen.
Yeah, I
Here,
think
let me
it's
let
kinda
you-
weird.
let me
No,
let
I
you-
got it right here. Yeah, you don't have to move. Here we go. There you go. Sorry.
Got it? Okay. All right. So I'll just kind of bring you into some things that we look at. Now, this is a fairly normal shoeing job. All we're trying to do is protect the foot, replace the hoof wall. get a sole off the ground, make sure you don't have any sole pressure, make sure that shoe is fit to the shape that we trimmed. I don't like to do any rasping on the foot after we've nailed the shoe on. So we're going to have to do a little bit, but I don't like to do a lot. I want that foot to be basically shaped before I shoe it. So it's up to me to make sure I get my shoe shape correct. So this got a little bit, some pins in here, some tungsten pins here. There we go. So that I like to use those instead of drill tech. Sometimes it's not a lot more even. So we'd like to see the widest point of the foot be about in the middle. Oh, those arrows show us the widest point of the foot. We've got about equal distance from in the front of that and equal distance in the back of that. Hey, what? What on?
Well, I'm
There
gonna
we
get you back.
Oh, you got me?
Yeah, there you go. Sometimes it clicks off that. There you go.
There you
Now
go.
you're back to you can.
I can click it.
I think so. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, let's talk about the functions of the foot a little bit more. We've got not only do we have to have a venous blood return, but we have to dissipate shock. So imagine a 1,000-pound horse running at close to 40 miles an hour in a gallop. Does anybody know? Can someone define me what a gallop is?
Like a canter, but all 4 feet off the ground at some point.
Well, and that's with a canter too. We've got a suspension phase and a canter. A canter is where 2 feet hit the ground at a time. So it's what we refer to as a 3-beat diagonal gait. A gallop is a 4-beat diagonal gait, and then each foot hits individually. So if he's traveling in his left lead at a gallop, he'll hit right hind, right 4, left 4. If he's turning to the left, he'll be in his left lead. Got it? So there's a lot of concussion when one horse hits the 1 foot at a time going 40 miles an hour. And so it needs to be dealt with. It's about 60% of it is dealt with by the attachment of the bone to the hoof wall, the laminar bed. There's a little bit of movement in there, and that dissipates the vibration of the shock. There's huge amount of cushions and cartilages in the foot that are designed to dissipate shock. The cushions of the tissues in the horse's foot are different than cushions of other horses of other animals that have pads. There's a lot more fibrocartilage and collagen fibers in there, and there's a lot less fat in there. So we've got all of these abilities to dissipate shock in the horse. Now, here's just another view of the laminar bed. You remember me telling you that it has the microscopic secondary laminar leaves on each primary laminar leaf. So you're looking at 3 primary laminar leaves there, and the dozens of secondary laminar leaves around each one. And that's what horses have, and that other animals don't have that. Other animals would just be smooth around there. So partially what happens, and we said horses need to be able to provide traction as well. So the farrier needs to understand the difference between deceleration traction and acceleration traction. Now, we don't want that horse jumping over that jump, at 1.4 meters, whatever that is. We don't want him going down. So traditionally, we've put a lot of traction on him and we'll put studs in him. We're finding that when we jam a horse up and don't let him slide too much, it causes a lot of orthopedic issues long term. So you have to be, again, very careful when we're dealing with traction. Just a look at the foot. This is just some landmarks. Got the frog, the central sulcus, the commissures, the bars, the seat of corn, the white line, the sole. Got a nice concave sole. Hoof wall. I like to have a hoof wall be about 3/8 of an inch thick if we can. We can divide the hoof up into regions, the heel, the heel quarter, toe quarter, and the toe. We can also divide it up into medial and lateral. So this is what a leg looks like without the skin. And I've got it in my little loading presser. So we teach the students their anatomy, and we'll load the leg and show how it supports the load. And then we'll be able to do some more dissections. But the suspensory apparatus is those series of tendons and ligaments that support the fetlock when it loads, and it allows the fetlock to descend and then store energy and ascend again. And that's one of the the result of that, it gives horses this really easy way of going. And if you, I don't know, I guess I'd rather ride a horse to chase a cow than ride a cow to chase a horse. If you've ever ridden a cow. So if you haven't, ride a cow and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Short little pasterns, not good movers, I'll say. I don't know, maybe put some of that Tennessee walking package on there, they'll move. I don't know. All right. So the suspensory apparatus is a series of tendons and ligaments, and it's an area that we have a lot of lameness in horses. That we have suspensory issues. We have bowed tendons. So it's important that farriers who are controlling that, we have some modicum of control over that, because we can raise or lower heels or that which affects that. So we just need to understand that, because all the time we're shoeing, we're trying to do some therapeutic shoeing for that to help heal those guys out. Okay. Oh, I just probably told you that. These are just some phases of the stride that we look at. On C is what we call heel strike. D is the foot's fully loaded, is loading. E, the foot's fully loaded, and that's what we call mid stance. And then the horse breaks over. And as he breaks over, we want him to break over the center of the toe. And if the toes are too long, there's too much force that needs to be generated for breakover. So therefore, we need to balance the foot in 3 dimensions, make sure the toe is the right length and the hoof's the right length so he doesn't stumble, so it doesn't cause any excess stress or strain on any of the tendons or ligaments in the leg. Do you guys all know how to pick up feet and handle feet? All you that have horses, do y'all know how to handle their feet? It's important that you do.
I don't know how, but I do.
Yeah.
What's that?
I don't know if I know how, but I do them.
Yeah, well then you do. You're still alive. I appreciate it from a farrier when you break your horses for me, so I don't have to break them. It's hard on me. It's y'all's job to do, not mine to break your horse anyway. Yeah, just be aware, just be careful. You know, I've been hurt with front feet more than I've ever been hurt with hind feet. Stay close to them, you know. But you do want to make sure that not only do you know how to pick up a foot, because every once in a while you might have to pull a shoe. You might have a shoe that's half on, half off. You might have to pull a shoe. You might have to pull something out of the foot or something. So you got to know how to pick it up. When you do pick it up, I'll give you one little hint that'll help you. Squeeze him in the back of the leg. When he picks his leg up, pick his foot up from here, grab it over your hand over the bottom of the foot and grab the toe. And if you got the toe, then you've got him pretty good. You got her, and you can hold on to it a little bit. Otherwise, they can get away from you pretty easy. That we'll keep going. Right. So I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about how we sight and why it's important. We've talked a little bit about sighting feet for medial lateral balance. And as a farrier, just wanted to go over a few of these things. I don't know if you can see on the top left, there's a line there, and that's how we're going to trim that foot. That's the plane in which we're going to trim the foot. You can see the one on the far right, right there. It's been trimmed, but it's been trimmed poorly. So you can see how it's high on the right-hand side, right? You can see the foot in the middle, how it's high on the right side. The picture on the bottom left is we're showing you that the shoes on the horse, we've got a race plate on that, but the shoe doesn't fit good because it's too close inside. Now we're going to have a greater chance of sticking that horse with the nail. So we just want to make sure that shoes fit the foot. And we do that with our at our anvil. As feet grow, average shoeing cycle is about 6 weeks, about 45 days. Everything grows forward. So you can see the caliper on the left. It shows you where the heel position is. I've got it colored in chalk there, and I've got a caliper. So the toe's way out front. After we've trimmed it, this is what we got. And so this is the change in what a horse feels, that you and I never have to feel this because we can take care of our own toes, our own feet, and we don't need to wait for somebody to pull a shoe off and retrim our feet back. But just think how it must feel to walk on that long foot in between you getting your feet trimmed. So the picture on the right shows what happens. That's you've seen that foot before. That's that same foot I showed earlier. but I showed you after I trimmed it. This is when he came in. This is 9 weeks of shoeing. Notice the angle of the line I have here for the heels, right there. See that? So I've got that line. That's the axis where the heel should be. It should be back here. The cannon bone is back here. So if I drop this line where the cannon bone is, the heels are way far forward. The toe is dished. Yeah, the clinches are still tight and the shoe's still on, but just because the shoe is on doesn't mean that it's okay, y'all. It's not okay. That horse would be way more comfortable have a shoe kick off and let him trim his own feet or break some of that foot off. But now he can't because the shoe is on there and it's preventing him. It's causing him to pitch more back, lose more angle, and lose more angle every week. And he loses depth of the foot, he loses sole concavity, and his foot gets warped. So my advice is to not let your feet go so long between shoeings. There's just some more warped feet. We've got a sheared heel on the right. You can see that the heel is sheared. The one on the left, we've got a real imbalance and a big flare and a toe crack there. When we trim them up, we've got some landmarks. Right, I'm just showing you these landmarks again. We've got the middle of the foot there, and then we've got this shoe is placed there. And notice where the heel is in this guy. And this is after the growth. This is after 30 days of growth. So everything is migrated forward. Remember, that red dot should be in the center. The heel should be way back here, and the toe should be way back there. And what I'm showing here is that the heels have really migrated forward on that. Now, after we've trimmed him and reshot him, notice this is the point of the heel, way up in the foot here. When we trim the hoof back properly, now the heel's back here where it should be, right under the coffin bone or the cannon bone. Got it? Again, just before and after trimming. See what we've done. The heel placement there, before, heel placement after. Again, before trimming, after trimming. After we've trimmed him, we have gotten rid of the flares, the dishes. We've got his foot medial-laterally balanced, and we've got the foot pulled back underneath, and now the foot is in a better position. Okay. Sometimes we have mismatched pairs. We have a high foot and a low foot, one with a 1 degree here and another degree there. It's very common in warm blood horses nowadays. So a way to deal with that is to put a wedge pad, right? Anybody know what a wedge pad is? So this is what this wedge pad did to this foot. Jammed up the coronary band there. It's made the heel sore. So yes, we got the angle better, but we made the heel sore in the process. So jerked it off. Foot's a lot more relaxed here. This is 10 minutes, 20 minutes later. The foot's corner band's much more relaxed. And look where the perpendicular axis of the cannon bone is right here, where it should be, okay? We do have a little bit of a broken back hoof pastern axis. The important thing about this slide is sometimes it's better to have a broken axis and a healthy foot than a sore foot and a straight axis. Got it? So these are some tools you guys are going to need to pull a shoe: a clinch cutter, a driving hammer, rasp, crease nail puller. Down here's a crease nail puller. That's a little tool you can get in the crease and grab your nail and pull each nail out individually if you want. And there you go. So we can go over some shoe removal if you want. If you guys ever want to know how to remove a shoe, sometimes you can't get a hold of a fair. Sometimes we don't call back. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you'd be the first group that has never happened to. Might have to get a shoe off. Well, you got to know what's happening. We make the shoe, we trim the foot, we make the shoe, and we nail the shoe on. The reason it doesn't hurt is because their fingernail is 10 millimeters, 3/8 of an inch thick. So we can nail up through that hoof wall and then come back out before we hit the lamina. And then what happens is we just clinch the nails over, right? We just clinch the nail. And that's what holds the shoe on. I like to burn them on. I like to hot seat them. I like to put clips on. But nonetheless, at some point we have to remove it. So we have to unclinch it and then pull the nail out and pull the shoe. So that's what we're doing. I'll go through it. There's cutting a clinch with a clinch cutter. Let me go get my tools. Or Dr. Coleman's tools. All right. So I got this guy here, and you can see it's gonna get up and straighten or cut that clinch, right? So once we go through and cut all the clinches, that's one way of doing it. If you don't have a clinch cutter, you can just put the foot up on your knee or on the hoof peg or something and then rasp the clinches off without tearing up the hoof wall. Okay. Once you get those cut, then you want to take your shoe pull off in the heels. Here's our shoe pull off. And it's important that you guys know the difference between a shoe pull off and a hoof nipper. Don't take my shoe pull off and go full fence table guys. Take that one. See the difference? Right, one's much sharper. Yeah. See what I mean, you guys? So all the time I say this, because all the time, oh, hey, I borrowed your shoe off, and you need to go pull the skate ladder. And then bring my nippers back with a 16 penny nail gun, and I can see you through like that.
What would you do with the nipper thing?
Wouldn't they bust it up like that?
Yeah. Can you paint it? Can you buy it again?
Not one has a big hole in it. When they get dull, you can send back factory, they'll sharpen them. But if you get a big old hole in like that, it's hard.
That's when they end up being.
Yeah, show these guys, Bob. Show these guys real quick. Did you see them?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He's got the-
The shoe pull off.
No, I don't have a shoe pull off. I got a set of old nippers, it's like.
You're using a shoe pull
I'm
off.
using the shoe pull off,
Yeah.
because they like you said.
Well, that's all right. That's all right. Okay,
Will they be able to see it in the camera, do you think?
here, let me see. I'll do it right here. How about that? Can you guys see that? That's the difference between a nipper, this guy, and a shoe pull off. This is much stronger. It's used to pull shoes. That's used to nip feet. Okay. So when we pull shoes, we want to make sure that we pull from the heels, and you want to take one heel and pull towards the toe. You want to pull always diagonally, pull towards the toe, because that's going to help the nails from breaking the hoof wall. So you don't want to take nails in like this. You don't want to pull a shoe and pull nails that way. It'll break the hoof wall. So you want to pull nails that way and that way. So you always want to pull towards the middle of the toe. If a nail comes out, you can pull a nail out individually. That's all right. Try to go side by side or go left side, right side, and you'll be able to finally get it off. Okay. Here we're just going through, just knifing the foot. And the reason that we knife a foot is we have to find out where the live sole is to know how much foot to remove. Then we get all done with that. We'll rough it out with a nipper. We'll nip that guy, and then we'll rasp him flat. And then we'll put some kind of shoe on him if he needs to be shod. Now, not all horses that are ridden or used need to be shod. Well, plenty of horses that are used a bit are barefoot. But the problem is when we really start using them a lot, then most often we've got to put a little protection on them. If nothing else, just on the front end, if nothing else. They just get a little sore, a little ouchy, and they're just a little more comfortable with a pair of shoes on. Shoes are steel. We've been doing it the same way since the Gauls did it in the 5th century in Ireland. The Irish Gauls were the first ones to nail steel shoes on with iron nails. And we do the same thing, except I hope a little bit better nowadays. But shoes can be wide web, they can be narrow web, they can be thicker, they can be thinner, they can be aluminum, they can be steel, they can be polyurethane, they can be of all kinds of synthetic shoes nowadays that we have, materials that will put up with the wear of a horse's foot. So it's our job to just pick what kind of shoe you want. To me, one of the better shoes is a nice full rim shoe like that. It cuts into the ground. We get good grip, and it gives us a good controlled slide because the groove fills in with dirt. And dirt on dirt is much better than steel on dirt. I'm not really a fan of heel calkins. A lot of sore-footed horses, a lot of sore-heeled horses because of heel calkins. But you do need traction sometimes. And if your shoe or your section of your shoe, like a full rim, won't do it, then you've got to do something else. If you're working on hard ground like asphalt, you're going to have a little drill tech or a little borium. Otherwise, you're going to horse fall down. If you're in a harness and you got a horse falling down in a harness, if you got another horse there, and then you got a train wreck. So we don't need that at all. But please do put your drill tech on with care. I'll tell you that. Toe grabs. We use toe grabs for racehorses. This is what it does to a horse that pitches their foot back when they're standing on hard ground. When they're standing in a deeply bedded stall, or they've got plenty of shavings in there, it's not a huge problem. When they're running, it presents a little bit of a problem. They're 17 times more likely to break down with a toe grab on than without, according to Dr. Sue Stover and Dr. Al Kane in 1996. But nonetheless, the race world keeps using them. This is the nails. This is a handmade shoe. I like to make a lot of my shoes, and I like to pitch the nails. That's one of the advantages of a handmade shoe. You can angle the nails to the same angle as the hoof wall. So when they go into the foot, you can see the nail here as it goes into the white line. Got very easy, very, very safe nailing there. And that's actually what keeps the shoe on. Now, I like to make shoes, and if you're going to do any kind of therapeutic work, you're going to have to make some shoes. So there's a lot of different varieties of shoes. You can see this horse came to us with toe flop, and he cut his deep flexor tendon. And once we got him under the shoe, we couldn't pick this other foot up because he'd rest on his fetlock. He couldn't hold his foot up. So you can see the scar there. So we put that shoe on him and picked his other foot up, and he stood there and was able to support himself. And that's what we need to do on that guy for a while. Here's a little club-footed horse that we've got a little toe extension shoe on, and that sticks out in the toe, so that helps to stretch the deep flexor muscle a little bit, which is the one that is tight as he walks. So that's a little handmade shoe that we can use for a flexural contracture. Bar shoes. This is a buggy horse right here. And she had a little trailer accident, so she ripped her hoof wall here. So there was no place to put a nail. So I moved my nails around, moved my clips around, and put a bar shoe on. There's a clip there. There's a clip there. And there's the drill tech here. So she just went right back in the harness, and off she goes. This is a heart bar shoe that we would use for laminitis or foundering. And then we've got a polyurethane pour in there. So we've got a double gunned caulking gun with two barrels that mixes, and when we squeeze it out, it's like in the automobile industry, they've got a lot of stuff. Okay, so it makes a nice soft pad in there. Okay, there we go, you guys. I think that's what we do. We take out a long overgrown foot and we put the appropriate shoe made of the appropriate dimensions of the appropriate material and has the appropriate modifications in it for the discipline and the job that the horse is going to do. I would say to you that if there's one thing that you can do, that would be to have regular hoof care. So stay ahead of the growth. That's the key in successfully managing horses' feet. Stay ahead of the growth. So that's what I got for you. How did we do on time? Boom.
I think we might have questions in the chat room.
Anybody guys have any questions?
Yeah, if you have a horse that's really having like a really overgrown foot, does it sometimes take several shoeings to make sure that you don't over trim?
Yeah. Your question is?
My question is, doesn't it often take several?
Oh, yeah, you're totally right. See, the problem is, it gets over time, the feet, as they grow long. Remember, the coffin bone's inside, everything's attached to the coffin bone. So if I'm here, it's one thing. But if I'm here, I got a big old lever out there, it's gonna pull and stretch. Well, when it does that on the sides and on the toe, it flattens the sole. It pulls the sole down. The sole should be up here, right? Pulls that sole down. So when you trim all that excess wall, all of a sudden the sole's on the ground. So it's really hard on the horse to just whack it all up and do it in one go. You're right. There's a lot of different, modalities that we can use, than just nailing a shoe on there to help. Nowadays, you've got polyurethanes that I can take your foot, trim it, wire brush it, squirt it on there, wait about 30 seconds, drop the foot, and he'll keep that glue on there for weeks. Literally a month. He'll keep it on for a month. Plastic shoe. That's all he needs to get him off the ground. So nowadays, farriers have a lot of different tools to use, and it's not like the old days where we had one option, and that's to get a shoe nailed on. And I had, what do? You got a big draft horse there. You gotta have shoes on, and the draft horse is worn, just worn her foot down to nothing. There's nothing there. Ouchie on it. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna deal with that? You gotta get shoes nailed on somehow, right? Well, that was the old days. Nowadays, we've got glues and all kinds of different things that we can use that we don't have to cause horses harm to get them shod. So, any other questions?
I got a question.
Yeah.
What is the reason? As I get older, it gets harder and harder for me to hit a nail with that little heavy hammer. What's the reason for that?
Your eyes are just getting old.
I know that, but
You got old eye syndrome.
what's the reason for that little bitty heavy hammer? I know that you got.
What's it? Well, because we think we're pretty cool. That's why. It's just a style. Carpenters have hammers and shoemakers have tinners. We all have our little hammers. I think because the horseshoe nail, actually, it's the nail head is kind of small. Right. And so, you're right. That I've never thought about that before. It's pretty small hammer. Of all these years, I never really thought of that. I looked at that pretty small. Now, all my rounding hammers are all big, my claw hammers, but these are little nails that if you hit them too hard, will bend. So, if you go to Europe, the European hammers are not like this. This is just the American style, I guess. Nowadays, the hammers are big, long throated things. It's the style. So horseshoers are very stylish. We gotta have the coolest tools, right? So you got a new tool, you gotta have it. So probably that's why.
Yeah, but as your eyes leave you, it's harder and harder to hit that nail with
Yeah.
that little head.
Well, that's why you should have been paying attention and gotten good at it. You got a muscle memory. You got a rider muscle memory for the last 20
Same
years.
place.
What else, you guys? Can I help you with anything else? Any other questions?
What's your opinion on those hoof boots that all these people are wearing?
Hoof boots. Not much, not much.
I see them, we find them on the trails all the time.
Yeah. The booting came because there's a group of people that are militantly against shoeing horses. I don't know if you guys know that. Any of y'all in here? Any people against shoeing horses in this room?
Not in the mountains.
Not in the mountains? All right, good.
You see a lot of people out there too, that
Well,
wearing shoes.
yeah.
That won't wear boots or don't even put shoes on.
Well, what happened was because we have so many people out there trying to shoe horses that have never been trained, and no one's holding them accountable, that people get PO'd. Owners do. And they're like, well, it's the third time these guys have come and put the shoes on. Did they fall off? They won't answer the phone, or my horse is sore, not that it's dead. I got an abscess, and blah, blah, blah. And then they read on the internet, shooing horses is a medieval torture device, and it should be outlawed, blah, blah, blah. And then people buy into it. And quite frankly, they're right. If you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know your anatomy and the physiology and how to properly shape shoes and fit them and nail them, then it is kind of torture to horses, because they got to stand on that nail. Their foot's throbbing, they can't get away from it. I mean, imagine that. I had one today, abscess so bad, I could pull half the sole off. Now, this didn't happen overnight. This poor horse sat out there and suffered for a week with his foot and his leg, and he come in today like this. So, yeah, there is an element of training if you care about your horses, and if you use them. An element of training that is, I think it's money well spent hiring a professional farrier. That being said, every old cowboy I know where I come from can shoot their own horse and they don't cripple So we're losing horsemanship, in my opinion, as we go along. It's old timers like us that are horsemen that we need to keep this industry strong. It's a great industry, man. And America is an unusual country, and there's very few countries that have as many horses per capita as we do. So anyway.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box, Mr. Taylor, but I just want to remind everybody, our next program will be in June for the Master Horseman Series. It's behavior and management. Do you want to talk anything about that, Dr. Coleman?
I want to save it all till June.
Preview all that, and we will just have you back here in June to talk about behavior management. You're the speaker on that one, correct? So, of course, we've got our trail ride, just a reminder, the 20th through the 23rd of May. So that'll kind of be our meeting in May. So we'll meet back in June. All the recordings for these sessions are now on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to look those up, Breathitt County Extension Office now has a YouTube channel. So look on there. We've got a few videos on there and all the other recordings of the Master Horseman series. Right, and that's right. We'll have a link up if you'd like to work the trail ride, volunteer for that. We'll have a link up. Definitely thanks everybody for attending tonight on Zoom and in person. If you've got any questions, we'll be here for a while, so feel free to ask them. Okay, and we'll see you all back for sure in June, and hope to see you at our trail ride in May.